Welcome. This is Abyss Whispers. Today we're going to be discussing a very loathsome individual, the Dung Eater. In Leyendell, Volcano Manor, and the Halig Tree, you'll come across the Dung Eater's victims, and on their corpses can be found the seedbed curse which the Dung Eater cultivates. It is described as a tender pox afflicted with Omen horns. The Erd tree shuns those afflicted with the curse, meaning that the souls of the Dung Eater's victims will never return to the Erd tree. Big Bogart describes the horrors of the Dung Eater that he saw when he was locked in the same jail as him. He witnessed his friend being defiled and could do nothing but watch in fear. He gives a warning to stay away from the Dung Eater, and he has every right to be afraid, because when the sewer jail under Leyendell is unlocked, the Dung Eater comes after Bogart and places the seedbed curse upon him. This curse is passed down through generations, causing children to be born as omens. Omens grow horns all over their bodies and are shunned by society. For a child born to an average family in the lands between, their horns will be severed, an act that is horribly painful and usually results in death. But the curse-born children from royal families aren't subjected to the severing of their horns. Instead, they are locked away underground, hidden from the outside world forever. Omens are so despised that a whole group of perfumers dedicated themselves to hunting them. Rollo is known as the first Omen killer. He drank a physic which made him emotionless, allowing him to hunt and kill omens without feeling. The Omen killers follow in Rollo's footsteps. They wear a mask which is said to be carved in the image of the evil spirits that haunt the omens in their dreams. The twisted horns on the mask resemble the horns of the omens themselves, so perhaps the suggestion is that the omens are haunted by their own affliction. They are their own living nightmare. So, it seems like the Dung Eater is just a cruel monster who takes pleasure in cursing his victims. But there's more to him than meets the eye. In fact, he views the curse as a blessing, and his goal is to spread it throughout the lands between. It may seem like a twisted sense of self-righteousness that guides him, but it could also be viewed as a way to avenge all the Omen who have been shunned by society. By making everyone in the lands between an Omen, the mistreatment of Omens would finally end. The Dung Eater's armor is made to resemble the average Omen. His horns have been cut off, leaving bloody stumps. This is how the Dung Eater wishes to be seen, when in reality he's not cursed. At least, not yet. It isn't until after defeating him in the moat that the Dung Eater comes to the realization that he is the one who wants to be cursed. And he asks us to use seedbed curses to defile his flesh.
There you are. You warded off my blessing, despite the curse stirring within you. No one has succeeded in that before. How? I thought. Then it hit me that you are, in fact, me. And I am the Dung Eater. It is my flesh that must receive the blessing. Give me your blessing. Defile my flesh with the seedbed curse, again and again, until it is done. Until a cursed ring coalesces and may one day defile order itself. Countless I have killed, and countless I have defiled, and soon the fruits will be born. Hundreds will be reborn cursed, and they'll bear thousands of cursed children, who bear tens of thousands more. A few of those will be born just like me, and they'll kill and defile and bless in my stead. The rotten fools. My fate was the grandest, most brilliant of them all.
After using 5 seedbed curses on the Dung Eater, he dies, leaving behind the Mending Rune of the Fell Curse. If this rune is used to mend the Elden Ring, the Order will be defiled entirely. In the eyes of the Order, Omens will no longer be abominations. The curse will become a blessing, and the Dung Eater's grandest hopes and ambitions will be fulfilled. However, there is another way for the Dung Eater's story to end. This involves the Preceptor, Solaire, who gives you a potion intended for Nepheli. If you give this potion to the Dung Eater instead.
No. I am the Dung Eater. I am.
You'll find him in Solace's chamber, amongst all the others Solace has used to create puppets. And with 5 starlight shards, Solace will give you the Dung Eater puppet. This puppet is in complete despair. The Dung Eater is no longer free to kill and defile. Instead, he is only a pawn. The puppet is described as hideous and sinister, but that its utter despair invites one to care for it. This is, in the Dung Eater's eyes, the worst way for his life to end. He will never be able to fulfill his self-imposed purpose of cursing everyone in the lands between for generations to come. Now, for anyone who played Dark Souls, you probably noticed the similarity between the sun-shaped medallion the Dung Eater wears and the sun on Solaire's armor. The sun on the Dung Eater's armor is said to represent the guidance of grace he once saw, and the ring to which it will one day lead. From this, we can gather that the Dung Eater wasn't always a killer, that he used to follow the guidance of grace. Perhaps it was because he was abandoned by grace that he grew to identify with the Omens and set out on his path to spread the curse across the lands between. In Dark Souls, Solaire is on a quest to find his very own sun. The sun on Solaire's armor was painted by himself. It wasn't a sigil granted to him by anyone else. This suggests that his quest is completely self-directed. You come across Solaire in various areas in Lordran, and each time he says he hasn't found his sun, even going so far as to say when he looks up at the sun, sometimes he wonders if he's seen as a laughing stock.
Oh, hello there. Forgive me. I was just pondering about my poor fortune. I did not find my own son, not in Anor Londo, nor in Twilight Blighttown. Where else might my son be? Lost Isolis, or the tomb of the Grave Lord? But I cannot give up. I became undead to pursue this. But when I peer at the sun up above, it occurs to me, what if I am seen as a laughingstock, as a blind fool without reason? Well, I suppose they wouldn't be far off.
Given certain circumstances, Solaire's story eventually ends in Lost Isolith. A sunlight maggot parasite has attached itself to his head, emitting a blinding light, and Solaire seems to be out of his wits. He says he's finally found his very own sun, and that he is the sun. There are a few parallels that can be drawn between Solaire and the Dung Eater. Both of them are on self-determined quests, without the guidance of outside forces. The Dung Eater is blind to the guidance of grace, and similarly, Solaire seems unsure of his own standing, admitting that he's not far off from being a blind fool. Solaire is on a quest to find his very own sun, only to find it by becoming the sun himself. And the Dung Eater is trying to curse the whole world, only to realize that it is his flesh that must receive the so-called blessing. Both of them can be seen as martyrs for their own cause. Solaire loses his sanity and his life for the sake of his son, just as the Dung Eater endures defilement and eventually dies for the sake of cursing future generations. Whether or not these parallels between the characters is intended, or if there's some other reason why they gave Dung Eater a sun medallion, I'm not sure. But I'm curious to hear your theories in the comments. Thanks for watching, and as always, until we meet again, farewell, fellow tarnished.
Unleash it upon them! A curse blessings to war!